August 25th, 1961. The president had resigned. The country was stunned, but the initial shock quickly gave way to a far more dangerous question. Who would take power? The Constitution had a clear answer. The vice president. His name was João Goulart, known to everyone as Django, and part of the Brazilian military, had already decided he would never set foot in the presidential palace. What followed were some of the most dangerous days in the history of Brazilian democracy. Days when the words civil war stopped being unthinkable. To understand why the military feared João Goulart, you need to understand what he represented. He was the political heir of Getulio Vargas. He had served as labor minister and built his reputation defending workers' rights. He was popular with unions, with the rural poor, with the parts of Brazil that had never felt represented by anyone. For his supporters, he was a reformist, someone who might finally address the deep inequalities the country had ignored for generations. For his opponents, the military, the conservative right, Washington, he was something else entirely. A man with ties to the left. A man who had visited communist countries. A man who, in the language of the Cold War, represented a threat. In 1961, that was enough to make powerful people consider the unthinkable. When Janio resigned, João Goulart was not in Brazil. He was on an official diplomatic mission in Asia. The last stop on his itinerary had been China, communist China, for the Brazilian military officers, who were already looking for reasons to block him. That detail felt like confirmation. The news of the resignation reached him on the other side of the world. He began making arrangements to return. But Brazil wasn't waiting. In Brasilia, 3 military ministers from the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force issued a joint statement. João Goulart would not be allowed to assume the presidency. They offered no legal justification. The Constitution was clear. The vice president succeeds the president. There was nothing to interpret. But they weren't arguing law. They were arguing power. And for a few days, it was genuinely unclear which one would win. Among the governors of Brazil's states, most waited. They watched. They calculated. One did not. Leonel Brizola, governor of Rio Grande do Sul, brother-in-law of João Goulart, and a man who had decided, in the hours after the resignation, that this was not a moment for careful calculation. This was a moment for a line in the sand. For Brizola, what was happening was not a political dispute. It was a constitutional crisis. And the answer to a constitutional crisis was not negotiation. It was the Constitution. João Goulart had been elected vice president of Brazil. The president had resigned. The Constitution was clear. Goulart would take office. And anyone who tried to prevent that was not defending Brazil. They were attacking it. Brizola said all of this out loud, in public, to the entire country, and dared the military to respond. Brizola had a problem. The military controlled most of the country's communications. The federal government was hesitating, and time was running out. So he built something from Porto Alegre. Using the radio stations he could reach, he created what became known as the Legality Network. Station by station, transmitter by transmitter, the signal spread across Brazil. At its peak, more than 100 stations were carrying the same message. The Constitution must be respected. Goulart must take office. The coup must not succeed. Millions of Brazilians tuned in living rooms, in bars, in the street outside shops, where radios were turned up as loud as they would go. For the first time in the crisis, ordinary people could follow what was happening in real time, and what they were hearing was that someone was fighting back. Brizola's voice became the sound of resistance, and the resistance gave people something they had not had since the resignation, a reason to believe. The Constitution still meant something. While Brizola broadcast, something more dangerous was happening. Brazil was arming itself. In Rio Grande do Sul, Brizola distributed weapons to civilians. Militias organized. Volunteers arrived at military barracks, asking which side they were on. Across the country, military units were making choices. Some declared support for the Constitution. Some declared support for the ministers who wanted to block Goulart. Some said nothing and watched. The federal government in Brasilia seemed paralyzed, unable or unwilling to act. For several days, the possibility of armed conflict between Brazilian military units was not a rumor. It was a real calculation that generals on both sides were making. How many units would follow the ministers? How many would support the Constitution? If orders were given to move, who would fire first? Brazil had not seen a civil war, but in those days, the distance between what it was and what it could become had never been smaller. Neither side was willing to back down. The military ministers maintained their position. Goulart was a danger. His taking power would destabilize the country. They were protecting Brazil. Brizola and his allies maintained theirs. The Constitution was not negotiable. A democracy that allowed the military to choose who could and couldn't be president was not a democracy at all. In Congress, politicians searched frantically for a middle ground. Something, anything, that would stop the crisis before it stopped itself with gunfire. And then someone put a word on the table. Parliamentarism. The proposal was this. João Goulart would assume the presidency. The Constitution would be honored. The military would accept his inauguration. But in exchange, a constitutional amendment would be passed, switching Brazil from a presidential system to a parliamentary one. Goulart would be president in name and in protocol, but real executive power would rest with a prime minister, approved by Congress. His authority would be real but limited, checked at every turn, contained. No one was happy. Goulart supporters felt he had been robbed of the full powers the Constitution gave him. They were right. The military ministers felt the compromise had not gone far enough. They still didn't trust the man, but the agreement held. The immediate crisis was over. Or rather, it had been postponed. In September 1961, João Goulart finally took office. He was president of Brazil, constitutionally, legitimately, according to every rule the country had ever written for itself. But something had cracked. The military had made it clear that they considered themselves a veto power over Brazilian democracy. Not guardians, not servants of the Constitution. A veto, and Goulart knew it, and his opponents knew he knew it, and the country felt it. Even the people who couldn't name exactly what had changed. The trust was gone. What remained was tension, managed. For now, the legality campaign had done something remarkable, using radio, civic pressure, and the willingness of one governor to risk everything. It had stopped the coup, not with weapons, not with tanks, with words, with the Constitution held up like a shield, with millions of Brazilians listening and deciding that what they heard mattered. But it had not fixed what was broken. The forces that had tried to block Goulart had not gone away. They had stepped back, regrouped, and they were still watching. The next years would be marked by escalating disputes, reforms that some called salvation and others called revolution, economic crises, street protests on both sides, fear, fury, and a polarization that fed on itself until it became impossible to stop. Brazil had escaped the storm, but it was still sailing toward it. Next episode, João Goulart tries to govern. The basic reforms take the stage, and the country begins to divide in ways it will not recover from for decades.